Hi.
Well, good afternoon. Walton County Sheriff Mike Adkinson here with our public information officers extraordinaire, Corey DeBridney and Miss Lindsay Darby, and this is the Sheriff Live, right? So if you're just joining us, just tuning in, you almost caught me mumbling over myself right before we got started because I wasn't quite ready, but we're good now. This is Sheriff Live. This is my opportunity to speak to my bosses, the citizens of Walton County, and really just the public at large about what's going on at their sheriff's office, the Walton County Sheriff's Office, Walton County, Florida, not Georgia. For those of you who don't know, this is Walton County, Florida is halfway between Pensacola and Tallahassee. We run from the Florida-Alabama line to the coast, about 1,200 square miles. And we do this twice a month where I report to my bosses. Again, we answer questions. What do we say? We don't guarantee you that we know the answer. We guarantee we'll find one. I guarantee, what I always say is I can guarantee that you won't offend me, and I'll try really hard not to offend you, but I will try my best to get you a good answer to something if we don't know. So if you're joining us today, go ahead and hit us up with questions. We don't dodge questions, but I don't see them either. So Corey or Lindsay kind of read them, and
it could be my fault.
Yeah, it could be Corey's fault. They're in the middle of, depending how fast they come in. We've had a lot of stuff going on, and we'll try and address some of those things. And listen, it's getting to be the Christmas season. We just finished up turkey season, so we're excited to get going. But again, a lot of stuff. This is probably the last time we're going to get going for this year during the holiday season. So, Corey, where do you want to start? We've had a lot of stuff going on.
Well, you just started it for us. So for Thanksgiving, we served 101 families meals.
That's great.
Your SRDs. Thanks to a list of churches that I've thanked on Facebook. But Fran Newsom is starting us off there. She says, where can we donate toys or money for Christmas?
Yeah, for Santa Patrol. So obviously you guys, most of you know that every year we do a Santa Patrol, which is where our Walton County Sheriff's Office family tries to reach out and help our community. And it's our local partners. It's the citizens of Walton County and a lot of businesses and individuals as well, too, that we try and help make Christmas a little better for some of these families. And it's a tradition here that we're pretty proud of, to be engaged and involved with. Corey, where would you like people to reach out to make donations to Santa Patrol?
So you can donate new toys and drop them off at any of our locations, including fire rescue stations. We have a list of those locations, and I'm going to have Lindsay kind of post the different district offices and the fire stations. Or you can make a monetary donation and just put in the memo Santa Patrol so that we know where to allocate it.
And I'm going to come back to Santa Patrol just a second. Let's talk about what Walton County Sheriff's Office is, because we're a little bit of a unique entity. For those of you that maybe are not from Walton County and you don't know, we can tell you the difference between a sheriff's office and a police department, which is a little bit different. But for the Walton County Sheriff's Office, we are traditional law enforcement operations. We are traditional jail services. We are fire rescue north of the Choctawhatchee Bay. We are Walton County Fire Rescue, which is our the fire operations, as well as our ambulance medical service as well. We are child protective investigations. And we are 911 communications, actually all the county communications. So a lot of stuff going on there. So I always try, and even me, sometimes I'll forget to say something. I'm always reticent. I hate to make that kind of mistake because we have so many people really dedicated to one call, which is public service. Yeah. And we always say different uniform, same team, right? Different uniform, same team, same goal. So if you didn't know that, we're a little bit different in that regard. But Santa Patrol
talk a little bit about why you think it's important to have all of those under one roof.
Well, I think because it's one mission. The mission is public safety. We don't pave roads. We don't pick up garbage. We don't trim trees. We don't pass ordinances. We don't give building permits. That's not what we do. We work to make people safer and to ensure the integrity and quality of life of the citizens of Walton County.
Yeah. So, great.
I think it makes great sense. Love
yeah.
it.
And just for everybody's edification, for Santa Patrol, we vet families through our school resource deputies because they have the most knowledge of who has the most needs in their schools, and we really identify them that way. That's not to say we haven't helped other people who have sought for our help,
for sure,
but we typically identify families through our schools.
Yeah, and they tend to be closer. We work with the teachers from Walton County School District so that we get information as best we can.
Yeah. So you can donate, like I said, new toys. Just make sure you leave them unwrapped so we know what age group to give them to, or you can donate monetary donations, and you can mail them or drop them off at any of our locations. Terry Lyon says, is there any news on missing people in your county? My nephew has been missing for many years. She's talking about Jacob Lyon. Jacob Lyons.
Yeah, no, I have not heard any movement on that particular case, and quite frankly, it's been a little bit of time. But we go back to the public and say, if there is information, if you know something about the disappearance of Jacob Lyons, you can reach out to us, and I think it's also the Niceville Police Department as well, too.
Yes, it's their case, yep.
Yeah, it's a Niceville Police Department case as well, too, but obviously we work together on these kind of things. Any information would certainly, it gets even worse at the holiday times, not knowing.
Yes.
We'd certainly love to find resolution to that case.
And she may also be asking because we did find skeletal remains in the south end.
We found remains, and those remains are still being examined. We're still trying to identify that individual. We've gone back and are trying a couple of different novel techniques, if you will, to identify that individual. And, we'd like to find some resolution there.
Yeah. Josh Bedreau is asking, did we ever take care of the kid driving the undercover Dodge Charger with blue and red lights?
Yeah, we charged. That's been, probably a few months.
So he was written a ticket for dark tint. And then I believe his car was disabled at one point in time on the side of the road. Talk a little bit about when and how blue and red lights are illegal.
So here's the bottom line. It's illegal if you're not a law enforcement or emergency safety person. That bottom line, you cannot have blue lights in your car if you're not a law enforcement officer in the state of Florida. No more complex to it than that. You cannot have red lights unless you're using an emergency, a firefighter, emergency rescue, and even volunteer firefighters from that standpoint. Otherwise, you can't have it. And really, that's one of those things, I don't even know why they sell them when they know that you can't have them. But that's the law in Florida. So a lot of times if we find those, we disable them. That's one of the first things we do.
Okay. The next question is from Larry Tingle, and he's asking, why are there so many traffic crashes at 331 and Highway 20?
I think a couple of things. One, just the volume of traffic. So Freeport is the fastest growing city in the state of Florida now. That's a fact. And the 6th fastest growing county in the nation. So you've got so many people, particularly going to work in the morning. I mean, I looked, and traffic was backed up all the way to from 20 to, as far as I could see, headed southbound in the morning. Same thing going north in the evening. You've got a lot of people headed 20 as well, going to school in the morning or heading over into Okaloosa County as well. So there's a lot of people in that really kind of tight area around 20.
Yeah. And are there any plans to improve that intersection?
I do not know the answer to that. I know DOT, kind of makes those decisions based on traffic counts and things of that nature. But yeah, it absolutely could use it. I mean, even turning westbound onto 20 from 331 is difficult just about at any time of day. So I'd love to see them do some work there. Okay.
Sheriff, just make sure you're leaning into that microphone. I'm a lot closer than you are. Caitlin Sanchez says hello. Christian Jackson also says hello. Ted Brown says there's still those plastic white PVC chains and fake no parking signs along Scenic Gulf.
Just to be clear, we have followed up with code enforcement. We've talked to them about that. That is literally their purview. I think we get asked about that probably 4 or 5 times a year, and we follow up with it. The sheriff's office can't go and remove that. That's a county code enforcement issue. But I want you to know we have followed up with that on multiple occasions. We will follow up with it again.
Samantha Baker says, congratulations on acting accordingly to an overdose death. Do you plan on opening old overdose death cases and acting on them as well, or are you going to leave them unsolved?
So that's a little bit more complex question, right? It's a loaded question the way you ask it, which implies that something wasn't done correctly. That's the tenor to the question. The truth of the matter is, anytime we can make the case, we're going to make the case. They're difficult to make sometimes because it's not as clear cut as people want to be. In other words, if you OD'd, we have to be able to identify the person that gave you those drugs and that there is a direct correlation between those two things. Every case that's an OD case like that we take before the state's attorney. And in this particular case, we had to go, the most recent arrest, it actually had to go to a grand jury to get an indictment. So it took 4.5, 5 months now to make that arrest. So every case the first thing we look at is, can we make a nexus between who provided the drugs and the death? If we can, we're going to make the charge every time, period.
Okay. Cool. Very good. The next question I have is from Mike Richards. He said, what would it take to get a cross arm with red lights and signs saying you're going the wrong way at Highway 331 and 20 where you pull out of the Tom Thumb?
I have to think about that just for a second. At the crosswalk at 20 and 331.
It says where you pull out of Tom Thumb at 331 and 20, just wrong way sign. So let's just say in the 4-lane, if you pull the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I got you. Let me think about that. I think I got to think about that just for a second. I think probably what we ought to try and do is I can reach out to Public Works. That would seem to be a county. Well, that's a U.S. highway. I'll have to follow up with that, Mr. Richards. I'll actually have to ask that question. Who
Maybe
would have?
DOT?
Yeah, who would have control of that's DOT, but it's also inside the city limits, so a little bit different rules apply. But I'll get an answer to that. I'm just not 100% sure off the top.
Okay, and then the next question is about Child Protection Services
Okay.
and asking if we've taken over for DCF.
Yeah, we did several years ago. Been a number of years ago. As far as the criminal investigations or involving child abuse, neglect, we do those. The rest of the services are provided by DCF, though.
So delve into that a little bit more, because DCF is still functioning as a state entity.
Yeah,
it's just in our county.
no, it's just only in our county, in 7 other counties in the state of Florida where sheriff's offices oversee the criminal investigation. So why is that? It's because there's a nexus, obviously, between a criminal charge, the well-being of the child, and we just don't want anything falling between the cracks. Bottom line.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that really got you wanting to do that is that a lot of times we were seeing.
Yeah, well, the deputy was going in the front door and DCF was going out the back. I mean, we're literally working this thing and not communicating, and we wanted to do what we could to
improve that.
Yeah, improve the communication.
Yeah. Great. Anna Albright said, "Are you going for the Santa Claus look?"
Yeah. Old school. Yeah.
Oh no. And she said, "Your beard is the bomb."
Yeah, I'm feeling old. I think that Just for Men come in there. That'd give you something to talk about right there, right?
And Laura, I think Lindsay was walking me through the sound thing. I was not doing that correctly, but she said you sound good now. And then we fixed the problem there.
It takes a village to get this show off the road, get us going every day.
Yes. So. And then Ramat is asking 2-part question.
Okay.
Should a driver in a traffic circle stop? Why are there pedestrian crosswalks exactly on the traffic circle along Commons Drive in Destin, which requires you to stop if there's a pedestrian?
All right, 2 things. So one, that's Okaloosa County, but I'll give you a real quick.
I don't know that we have roundabouts in our.
I don't think we actually have a roundabout in Walton County, to my knowledge. As soon as somebody will point one out that I've forgotten. You're not supposed to stop. You're supposed to clear the traffic, and then a pedestrian has a right of way. So a pedestrian's going to have the right of way. That's Florida law. It's not that I agree with it. We run into the same problem on 38, where it's not really, I don't think, clearly marked, and yet somebody has to step out and they step in front of traffic, and so you got to be super careful. It's not whether I agree with it. That's just simply the law.
Yeah. And I just got to.
A roundabout. Somebody said somebody's going to tell me where a roundabout is now.
No. Lindsay got a text from Jennifer Fannin, Sergeant Fannin, and all your lieutenants like to watch Sheriff Live. I hope you know that. Dave Robson, I hope you're watching because I got him hooked up on YouTube today. She said Lieutenant Smith has already contacted FDOT about wrong way signs on 331.
Right. So, Mr. Richards, we apparently, our trusty lieutenant, I wish I could take credit for that, but Lieutenant Smith is already on that, so that's a good thing. And
she said, yes, there is a traffic circle in Sandestin.
On Sandestin property.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Well, that's even different, by the way, because that's a private roadway.
Sure.
Which is not a public roadway. So they have a totally different set of rules involving that.
Yeah. Please no roundabouts.
Yeah. I actually see that differently. Roundabouts actually really, they'll start burning me in effigy, but a roundabout on 30A would have solved some problems for folks. People don't like, people in the States really don't like roundabouts.
No, I grew up with them, and they're terrifying.
They are, but they actually help the flow of traffic pretty significantly, and they actually have less accidents. Now, again, people don't like them, and so be it.
Caitlin wants to know, what are your safety suggestions you have for the holidays? Perfectly segueing into our holiday home checks. Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, so
and
nice.
Also, what's your favorite holiday food? I want to know Lindsay's and I want to know yours.
I got to think about that.
Are we talking about Thanksgiving? Because
Yeah,
if
no,
it's
no,
Thanksgiving,
no.
it's cranberry sauce.
yeah,
For me. My gosh, I could eat the whole can.
Oh gosh.
So let's talk about safety first, because I think we do home safety checks
that
if you're
more
not
important than
home.
food?
Pardon?
It is more important than food.
Yeah, well, I need to back off the LBSs. So, we offer a program that if you're going to be traveling, where we will come and check on your home while you're gone, just to make sure everything's like it's supposed to be. You can call that in to us. We'll put it in. Tell us the length of the stay, who you expect to be there, what we should expect at your house, and we'll come by and check on it while you're gone. So I think that's a really good thing. The other thing is, let's talk about porch pirates. This is the time of year that everybody, Amazon. I think I had 2 FedEx trucks stopped at my house at the same time the other day. True story. Yeah, but you need to get that stuff off the porch. Do not leave your stuff on the porch. And then lastly, lights. Lights are so important to the safety in your home. Lock your doors, have lights on, keep packages off your porches. It's going to be great. So that's the safety thing. Holiday food. I got to think about that for a second. Listen,
Lindsay probably wants to throw in there that please don't catch your Christmas trees on fire.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime
space
space heaters, anytime it starts getting hot, our fire rescue folks would say, listen, make sure that you don't have a shorted out light string, and I know those are frustrating. And space heaters, Lindsay, I think would
Yes.
I think Chief Pugh and Boss would tell you that's one of the main things we worry about this time of year. So for sure.
And what's your favorite holiday food?
You know what? Listen, any excuse to make a prime rib, it's kind of hard to
That
argue
would not be my
with
first.
that. Yeah,
I'd rather have mashed potatoes.
yeah.
Starch
Can't
up for me.
go wrong. Can't go wrong there.
What's
Oh,
your?
yeah,
I'm Irish. You drag a potato, I'll follow it down the street. So
that's what I was gonna say. I'm Irish, so I'm gonna have to. I don't know, but I love a good deviled egg.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
Hard to go
Lindsay's a
wrong.
deviled egg.
Oh
I
my gosh,
like
it's
deviled
so
eggs too.
gross, but,
it was solid.
No, I love
I
it.
beat my body with
Yeah.
it.
Okay,
thank
so
you.
do you put the paprika on the top?
Yes.
Yeah, who
roast
eats a
stuff.
deviled egg without
And
paprika?
it's gotta have pickle roast.
Hard-hitting show here today. Hard-hitting.
Okay, sorry. Carried
No,
away.
I'm with you. Listen,
Caitlin,
you go
thank you
solo.
for your question.
Yeah, sorry.
Linda says, please no roundabouts. I concur, Linda.
Yeah. Listen, it's what the people want. Doesn't matter what I like to think about it.
Preston Prater says, what can you release relating to the deputy-involved shooting so far? And number
Sure.
2, when and will there be body camera footage released in any capacity?
So, here's the short version of this. In fact, we had talked to the Department of Law Enforcement today. They did a briefing. They concurred this morning, as a matter of fact. Yeah. They concurred with everything we said and everything that I've originally told you. The state's attorney's office will review it as well. That's part of it. But I'll be honest with you. We're prepared to put our staff back to work already. We're confident in their actions, and in fact, they acted both professionally and really above and beyond what you would even expect, quite frankly, in the way they attempted to render aid, the way they handled the situation, all the way across the board. It's probably one of the most clear-cut examples of how badly things can go wrong and how quickly they can go wrong that you're going to be exposed to, that you're going to see. So let's talk about the video itself. So I know people.
Well, why don't you walk people through what happened?
Sure.
Just really quickly.
We'll back up and do that. A call came in. And I don't remember what day of the week it was, but came in the evening
was
from
Tuesday.
it was a Tuesday. Okay, it was actually cold too. Saying someone was trying to sell a gun and some meth. Deputies were on scene. They were in the area looking. They got a second call and said the person was around back behind the Five Guys.
In Miramar.
Thank you. The Five Guys hamburgers in Miramar. That's a very dark, unlit area. Deputies went around back and attempting to locate the subject, who, keep in mind, they were already told was armed. We had a second caller call and say that he was armed, trying to sell a pistol and drugs. The person in this case, and we've identified him at this point, last name is Minton. By the way, he's a convicted felon in 4 states,
South
at least
Carolina,
3.
North Carolina, Florida,
Okay,
and I believe Georgia.
So 4 states he's a convicted felon in. Pops up out of a dumpster. Is addressed by deputies. Multiple times they tell him to clear his hands. He attempts to shove his hands back in his pockets or back out of sight while he's in the dumpster. Deputies are trying to address this. Just from a purely legal point, they could have shot him then. They did not. They waited. They tried to take him into custody. As they were getting out, the subject produced a firearm and attempted to shoot one of our deputies. They took action that was necessary, and it resulted in his being deceased. Deputies on scene gave really extensive life-saving efforts. One of the deputies on scene was actually an emergency medical technician as well, too. And in fact, I think even in our brief out today, the state of Florida said, look, these deputies did an excellent job in even attempting the life safety thing. So we're confident in the behavior of our deputies, we're confident in their training, and we're proud of the way they conducted themselves. That's the short answer. I've already cleared them to come back to work. So, the state will take another 60 to 45 days, but I'm confident based on what I know, and as I told you that night, that when they're ready, they'll return back to work fully. Body camera. The whole incident was captured on a body camera. So there's two schools of thought about this. And I'm on the fence about it, but here's the truth. I don't like anybody seeing the suffering, death of others for enjoyment, right? I don't think it's entertainment. I don't like that. I don't like anything about it. But I also understand the singularly greatest responsibility given to a sheriff, and it adds as well to his deputies through the sheriff, is the ability to take a human life, to use deadly force. It is the heaviest burden. To my knowledge, we don't ask anybody else domestically in the United States of America and come to work and say, you may have to take someone's life, right? With that responsibility comes the reality of transparency and things that people need to know. So yeah, ultimately we probably will release that body camera. I don't like it. I wish there was some other way. But I think when you use deadly force, ultimately our response was to be as transparent as we can, not to glorify it, not to. Anyway, it's just one of the things that comes with the business we're in. So probably, I would say ultimately it's going to be released. But we're not. The state attorney's technically not through with their investigation yet.
Correct.
So until it's done.
And obviously we have had a shooting.
Oh, we've
in the
had
past.
we have more shootings.
And after that shooting, we really waited to release the video until the state attorney's office had it released their findings.
Yeah, and we're not going to do anything until it's officially closed, and we'll go forward from there.
Yeah. So, as a practice, we typically wait for the state attorney's office
Yeah,
to put.
as in general, we're going to. Yes, there may be exceptions in the future, but this is where we're at now.
Nick Allen says, I'm sorry to say this again, but the cyclists that like to run all the stop signs on Mac Bayou and own the road, what can be done about it?
Yeah, they have to follow the
bicycles
rules.
Are supposed to follow the rules.
They have to. They're supposed to follow the rules of the road. And it's a difficult thing, but the reality of it is we need to see them doing that. We don't want you to confronting them, but you do need to let us know. If you know a specific time of day, that make it a little bit easier to put a deputy over and try and make contact with it. It's interesting is every time we make contact with somebody goes, don't you have something more important to do? But it is important because accidents happen. They get hit, and very similar with pedestrian and jaywalking. Nobody wants to be stopped for jaywalking, but at the same time, if you look at the number of people we get hit walking in the roadways, we've had 3 in the north end of the county, 2 of them fatalities, walking in the roadway. So these are things that are important. So if you know about a time frame, or if you know who it is, please email us, let us know. I can tell you, we had to talk to a jogger twice to say, hey, you need to stop jogging in the road against traffic. He goes, well, I like to see the traffic coming. We said, okay, you can't do that. We went out there and talked to him. He said he wasn't going to do it, and then guess what he's doing again? You got to talk to him and say, listen, we're trying to save your life. He says, don't you have something more important to do? We're not in this as a popularity contest. We'll ultimately cite him if we have to do that. So, just let us know, and we'll see if we can identify him. Yeah,
Nick, and your Mac Bayou, your district lieutenant is Robson, and feel free to email us, and we'll get. Yeah,
we'll get it to Lieutenant Robson as well.
Sheena Disler, can you do something about the meth lab off of Business 331? And just as a frame of reference, if people do suspect drug activity, what do you suggest that they do?
Sure. I mean, you have to be a little more. You have to be a little more specific. Not on the Sheriff Live, but you have to be a little more specific. You email us with what information you know. A lot of so we probably get, I would guess, maybe 40, 50 people calling in a month saying there's a drug deal at this house, and we say, well, how do you know? Well, I know. People come and go all hours of the night. Well, they're shady. We have to have a little bit more, but that's where we get started. That's always how we get started. Is somebody calls us, we start looking at it, and then the more specific you can be, the better it is for us. But these things take a long time. We just arrested some folks, but it's almost 30 people for trafficking in cocaine. And a year before that, we did 46 in Freeport area. And you have to keep in mind, right after we got through with the 46 in Freeport, it wasn't 6 months later. Somebody said, when are you going to do something about drugs in Freeport? Drugs are a problem and they're an epidemic. That doesn't mean that you stop trying, but the more specific information you can have, like the address, like who lives there, why you think there's drug dealing, it would help if you have something more than people are there all hours of the night, day and night. I'm not saying that can be an indicator for sure, but you need to try and give us as much as you can. So email us, and if you want to be anonymous, say I'm anonymous. But the more information you give it, the better it is.
Yeah. Judy Keith has a great question, and probably one more in depth that we could talk about.
Okay.
She's asking, what's the holdup on cases waiting on DNA evidence?
It takes forever. It literally takes months and months and months. And depending what the crime is, so let's just say, for instance, they won't even work a burglary. So you have to realize a lot of this stuff we have to send to private labs. But let's just say that there are 5 items we think someone left DNA on. We don't get to send all 5 at one time. We send one item. It may take 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months to process that one item. If they don't find anything on that item, then we send the second item. Do you understand how difficult that can be if you have 3 and 4 items?
And who's they? Who are you
They,
talking
the Florida
about?
Department of Law Enforcement. So their crime labs are so incredibly backed up that it just takes a really long time to do this.
And
it's
break
by the
that
way,
down
it's
for
frustrating.
people.
It's frustrating to us as well too, because somebody says, "Well, how does it take so long?" It just takes a long time because if we have 5 items, right, and that's not uncommon to have 5. Up to 5 items. We can't send all 5. We have to send one at a time, and we go in line with every other agency from here to Gainesville, basically, going to the crime lab here in Pensacola. So it's
Yeah,
can be complex.
And break that down. Like, they're overwhelmed. They have a ton of cases, and what does it cost?
and so just to be
private
clear,
labs?
yeah. So just to be clear, it is the priority of cases first is obviously person's crimes. It has to be a serious person crimes. You get to things like burglary, they're not even running those half the time. They're just too far behind.
Yeah.
So we send a lot of Walton County. We'll go to private labs on occasion, and this is not me bashing the Department of Law Enforcement. It's just they're underfunded and they don't have enough people, so it's a problem. We'll send them to private labs, but you're talking about $100 to $1,000 to test, depending on what we're testing. Every one of those. So if we have 5 items, we send 5. That's maybe $1,000, $2,000 for that one test, and we still got to wait on them. So it's definitely a growth business because everybody wants DNA on everything too now. So it's really getting complex.
And to give investigator Embry,
It's not like, by the way, it's not like CSI where you turn DNA in 48 hours. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely doesn't work like that.
in a lab in your own building.
Yeah, in a lab in your own building. Yeah.
To give investigator Embry a shout out, he just got DNA back from an armed robbery
Yeah.
at our gas station.
And how long ago was that?
And that
A
years
year
ago.
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah.
About over a year ago. Year and
Yeah.
16 months. That's an armed robbery, and the DNA just came back. Think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But
All right,
but
yeah.
I say that because when somebody has a burglary, they go, well, why is it my got DNA? Why is my armed robbery takes precedence over a burglary? And so if it takes that long for them, just imagine.
Yeah. Rich Foster, would the sheriff consider the On Patrol live show now on the Reels channel to ride with Walton County SO? I really enjoyed the previous ride-along shows. I do want to just put in my 2 cents here. Loved being on Live PD.
Sure, we had a great relationship with them.
We had another production company come in afterwards, and then A&E dropped
Yeah,
all the police
yeah.
shows.
So
And it was a lot of work.
it's
a lot of work.
It's a lot, and the other thing is when you put a camera crew in there, it's like throwing a football, right? 3 things can happen and 2 of them are bad, and so we kind of feel like the way we police, the way we do business is a community service oriented, and we're not necessarily what they want to see for every flavor.
Yeah.
So it always have to be the right thing. People that are more interested in the story than the chase, because that's just not what we're about.
One, it's not realistic.
Yeah, well, even if it is, it's just not. There's so much more to it. So
Yeah. Sheila Mitchell says no texting and driving is number one safety.
Sure, I agree with that. I can get there. I can get there for sure.
Lindsay, Nick Allen says smoked deviled eggs are the best. I don't think I've ever had that.
don't think I have
Alicia
either,
says
though.
she seconds the cranberry sauce. And it can't be the chunky one. I'm not talking about the chunky one. I'm talking about the gelled one. Janet Schaefer-Beck says the roundabouts need to focus from the driver, but it resolves the backups at incredibly long lights.
Oh, it does. There's no question. I mean, again, people don't like them, but
Yeah.
that's because in America you're just not used to dealing with them. We just don't have that many of them.
Yeah.
One on private property, I think, is what we finally determined now.
Yeah. Corey Godwin said, great story on WJHG about the RSAT program, the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment Program.
Yeah, at the jail.
We just graduated a men's class. We graduated a women's class earlier this year.
Sure.
And that's new. Talk a little bit about how that's an organic
Yeah,
program.
and the other thing too, we got a really great email from Florida State University today, and we're going to share this with the public here pretty quick. But it essentially said, listen, we've been to other places, we've looked at other jails, and that what the Walton County Sheriff's Office is doing, the men and women at the Walton County Jail, is leading the nation. I mean, leading the nation in the way we try to approach programs that matter, that change lives. And so I'm super proud of the work those men and women are doing. I had a really good meeting with our mental health and substance abuse staff today about where they're continuing to go. But it really across the board, from our security staff to our intake specialists to Mr. Lyons in food service to our farm, we have a philosophy, and I think quite frankly, I think it's the right philosophy, which is changing lives. We hold people accountable. We also try and change lives where we can too. I'll be excited to share some of those results. I'm looking forward to being able to tell the story of what the men and women at the jail, the professionals, are doing out there. So
Yeah. And Amanda Sanders has a really personal mission along with just wanting to help people in general. She said watching them develop in that class is like Christmas morning. You just see the light bulb go off,
That's
and
good stuff.
they're changing lives. So Ted Brown is asking, was the pistol that Mr. Minton had in the deputy involved shooting, was it stolen or was it his gun?
I don't
First of all,
know.
he's not allowed to have a gun.
So
Because
he's a convicted felon, so he can't have a gun. Bottom line, I really don't want to say anything about that right now. That part of it needs to wrap up with the state.
Yeah. Clint Williams, on a different subject, do you think we could get some extra patrols on Black Creek?
Love to, working on it.
And
Absolutely
Black
working on it.
Creek is Lieutenant Bart Smith's
Correct.
district, so we will reach out to him, Clint.
For sure.
Rich Foster, it was very good on your part to immediately address the WCSO shooting.
Well,
Your
thank you.
deputies should and need to know that you support them. Great thanks to you and your deputies and support staff.
Thank you.
I'm looking for a lot of people are just thanking you for what you do. Regina Bishop, I have a two-part question. Are the
Okay.
folks arrested in the bust on Sunset Lane in Freeport going to be charged with selling within 100 feet of a daycare and church?
Okay.
Also, the young man that was arrested later in connection with this bust, is it possible his charges are going to be dropped since he wasn't there at the time that it happened?
That's kind of here's the short answer. The state's attorney will decide whether or not to add additional charges to that. A lot of times we charge on an open, in other words, we charge the best charge that we see. But sometimes the state looks at it and go, okay, we need to add this enhancer because, hey, it's 1,000 feet of a school or something like that. As far as whether or not charges will be dropped against somebody else, I don't want to make any comment about that. That's the purview of the state.
Yeah.
So, but it's not uncommon for charges to change. I mean, we get that a lot. Why didn't you charge first-degree murder instead of, second degree? A lot of it has to do with the state really needs to look at it and decide, what's the best way to approach this from a prosecution standpoint.
Yeah. Nick Allen says his son Corbin is watching. Hi, Corbin, and he's 9, and he thinks that you're a great sheriff.
Well, I like that.
Well,
that's a future voter right there.
Listen,
We like him.
the approval of kids is always good.
Amen. Amen.
Sam Edwards, how much money would it take to have our own crime lab, and would it be worth it?
So we priced one a few years ago. We actually looked at it, and that's a great question. I think it's going to take a little bit more research. And at some point, we're probably not right there, but we're close. And I will tell you, we actually offered to the Department of Law Enforcement. We said we'll pay the salary of a tech to if they would work Walton County cases first, because to me it would be cheaper to pay the salary of a crime tech for FDLE. The problem is they said it takes 2.5 years to get somebody trained, and they don't have a building big enough even if I did that. So they got problems. They got real funding issues going on over there.
Yeah. Laura Lee Sparks is asking, how does Sheriff Tony Smith do so many busts of homes selling drugs in Franklin County? He reports all the time on his Facebook what's going on over there. I never see that in Walton. It's not just about big rings every couple years.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a philosophical thing about, how you want to release. We just don't release every drug case. We just simply don't. We could. I mean, we could literally do a drug case, an announcement on a drug case pretty close to, maybe not daily, but every couple of days. We just choose not to. We don't release every case we make. We don't press release everything we do as far as in regard to even whether it's a arrest on a burglary or it's a drug case. So it's just a difference of styles. Nothing wrong with it. Everybody's individually different. So
yeah,
pretty successful, and we still fundamentally believe from our standpoint, I could arrest 45 people with, a half gram. That's not as many as one person with a kilo. The impact on people's lives are more significant, right? So we're trying to choke this thing off on both ends of the spectrum. That's really just a philosophical approach. But as far as arrests, we absolutely make a ton of arrests that we simply just don't announce them every day.
Yeah.
You would get sick of reading it on Facebook here in Walton County. It's just too many things going on.
Yeah. A second part of our question, are we looking to expand the RSAT program so we can run men and women programs at the same time? Also, what support are we giving them after release with finding housing, aftercare, et cetera?
All right, so yes and no. Yes, we're looking at expanding the RSAT program. No, we're not doing what I think we probably could do with assisting with housing after they get out. Housing is by the way, it's a critical problem for our staff. It's not just inmates. It's a staffing issue for us as well, our own employees. The second part of that is I had a pretty good meeting today. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier with our mental health and substance use folks about how to work with Big Bend, who is our service provider for mental health and substance abuse, really the overseer managing entity of funding. They have some pretty good ideas that we're going to try and expand. We want to get to a licensed clinical social worker, a care coordinator outside of the jail, that transition coordinator, if you will. And at the same time, what about these houses we go to, 10 and 15 times that maybe we don't make an arrest, but they need services. So we're trying to work on that as well too. So yeah, we're looking to expand other services. Yeah.
We have graduated a women's program earlier this year, but it also has to do with the inmate population and who's willing, and then who's judge ordered.
There's a lot of factors involved in that. But
that program is very successful as it stands now. Tina, we need more community awareness of human trafficking and how to identify and report it. And then Charlie Comer is asking, will we ever do weight-bearing vests for the deputies?
I'm generally not in favor of them because of the militaristic look of them. About every 3 or 4 months, they bring me a new version to look at. I'm not saying that we won't ever do it, but it really needs to be in line with our philosophy and the way it looks. A lot of that has to be with, just has to be the right. I'll say look, but maybe that's the right answer, the right feeling for the county itself. So there may come a time we do it, just not today.
Yeah.
Not today.
Ollie Walker, I was late to the previous fireside chat. Man, I kind of like that. Fireside
it's a FDR.
With,
that's the FDR.
Sheriff Adkinson.
Yeah.
And remember hearing something about our ER closing, but missed the context. Are we talking about the ER at Ascension and Miramar or another county hospital? Thank you.
It was in the north end of the county. Our emergency room north of the bay closed about May of this year. So it's been closed the emergency room has been closed. I think they're still open with services there, but yeah, that's been a major challenge for our fire rescue personnel. North of the bay, it's serious problem, serious issue, and we're looking at we put a 7th, 8th ambulance in service, a 7th ambulance in service, and then looking at putting an 8th part time, and we're working on some things now to even try and mitigate some of the transport times, because at the end of the day, if you're having a stroke or if you're having a heart attack or you're having a traumatic injury, man, those minutes matter. They really matter. And so we're doing everything we can to try and help mitigate that. I can tell you, I know talking with Walton County Fire Rescue staff, our staff, they're working on some ways to continue to mitigate it. But here's the truth: we need an emergency room. There's just no way around that. You need an emergency room. The people north of the bay deserve an emergency room to take care of their loved ones. Yeah, we're working on it best we can to, and we support any effort to get it open.
Yeah,
And the best effort is to open the existing one. There's just to be clear, because some people ask me this occasionally. I need the one at Health Mart to open. That's the first best solution to have that one back open, right? Because if anybody comes in here, they got to build one, and they're not going to build one in 2 weeks. That's years.
Sure.
So we need that one there open first.
sure. And just so, Ollie, for your knowledge, South Walton Fire District operates EMS south of the Choctawhatchee Bay.
Correct.
They have an emergency room at
absolutely.
Ascension Sacred Heart.
But they're not.
However,
They're not in a position to take everybody north of the bay.
Correct.
A lot of those folks end up going to North Okaloosa Medical Center north of the bay, or to across the line into Alabama, or to Boniface. I mean, it's a pretty significant haul.
Yeah.
So, or even to Twin Cities. I mean, that's a pretty good. If you're in around the Defuniak area, that's a heck of a transport time.
Yeah.
So,
Deborah Lee says thank you for what you do.
thank you.
Sarah Ann says I'm just joining, but has the house on 30A been addressed? Are there any arrests at the house on 30A? The house party on 30A, to be more specific. Has there been any
No,
arrests?
I had a meeting on that.
And Anya, watching from Colorado, thank you so much for keeping our community safe.
Hey, thank you.
Well, thank
we
you.
love Colorado, by the way.
You love Colorado.
I love Colorado.
Yeah.
They get Coach Prime Time up there in Colorado. I may become a Buffs fan. I don't know.
We're caught up on questions, I think,
Perfect.
if I'm not mistaken.
So we had a couple of different things. As interesting as a house party is, more importantly, we just recently made an arrest on a child sexual battery suspect from Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
who was working in the Alice Beach area there in construction. We were able to arrest that folks. We arrested 2 murder suspects out of Gwinnett County, Georgia, up at 98 and 283.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago? Week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of things going on. Obviously, with the officer-involved shooting takes precedent from that standpoint. And as we said earlier, we're still working to try and identify the body found at the over in Miramar. So that's a lot of that's still going on as well too.
And still not under investigation on the deputy involved side of it, but the I-10 shooting with our suspect.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Is also it's about to go to. He's got to go to court. At some point
So that was, some of you guys may remember a shootout with Walton County deputies, Okaloosa County deputies, and a trooper with a suspect who tried to shoot some of our deputies here in Walton County. That ended with the suspect being shot just outside of Crestview by our staff, by one of our deputies or a couple of our deputies. That will go. We're going to trial now, or going to court here pretty quickly on that individual as well too. So, a lot of stuff been going on there for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Somebody asked if you have any comment on efforts on human trafficking.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. We have I would say an agency really resource in Lieutenant Kaliko Wheatley. If you have somebody, a church group, a business, somebody you'd like to come talk to, Lieutenant Wheatley does a really great presentation about how to identify victims of human trafficking. And it's not what we traditionally think. I think one of the things people always think is everybody locked inside of a van, and so a little bit more to it, a lot of complexity to that. A lot of the human trafficking are actually even local people that are young, particularly young girls in this case, runaways, things of that nature. But if you have someone, if you have a group, if you'd like for us to come talk to you and tell you how to move forward with some of those things, she does a really great presentation. I don't think she would mind me volunteering her and saying, we would love to come out and maybe work with your group. And, the more eyes and ears available, the better it is. I mean, that's the bottom line with that.
Yeah. Deborah Handy is asking, how about the hospital in Defuniak Springs? I think that's what we're referencing.
Yeah, that was what we were talking about.
And Nita Nobles is asking, what was the purpose of the remodel of the ER for it to be shut down?
That's outside of my. You have to understand that's outside of my purview. That's a private hospital. I don't have any control or say in that.
And then Riley Peacock has an interesting question.
All right, come on, Riley.
If you were in Top Gun, what would your preferred call sign be?
I'm afraid to fly, so it's probably be the last person in there.
Maybe Scaredy Cat.
One I'm trying to get out of the airplane guy.
Scarecrow would be your call sign.
I gotta get out of there, man.
Get me
Other
out
things
of here.
I'm not going to be. That's numero uno. That
Come
and snake
on.
catcher. I'm out. A man's got to know his limitations. I am out. I'm just about to have a Valium to get on an airplane as is. Now, every time I have to fly for business, I'm
I
like,
didn't
oh
know
my
that.
gosh, I hate it.
Did I
hate
know
it.
that? I feel like
I hate
know
it.
that.
I fly because I have to. I fly because I have to. And every time I have if I was Catholic, it would be an epic confession every time because I am laying it out there. In fact, maybe I need to find a Catholic priest to take it because I do not like to fly. So
Oh, man.
I do it because it's business. It's just too much quicker. But
Riley, I've flown with the Thunderbirds, and I can tell you that it is a once in a lifetime experience because
that I
once
don't
you
have to
do
have.
it,
I don't
you
need
don't
it again.
want to do it.
I don't
again.
trust me. I don't need that in my life. I do not need that in my life for sure.
Danny Roby, love the Walton County Live, great communication.
Thank you.
Caleb Hall, thank you for all you do. Tuning in, also a first responder in Jessup, Georgia. Thank you, Caleb.
Get your application ready. We're hiring. So we're hiring
come on down to
firefighters,
Florida.
EMT, paramedics.
We have no income tax, Caleb.
We have no income tax. We pay a bonus to come to work.
Yeah.
We're out of state. So a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, we're recruiting.
Mark Holmes
Okay.
is saying thanks for the increased presence at west entrance of Dune Lakes Elementary. Nick Allen, thank you for getting all the bad guys, and
I wish
thank
we
you
got them
for
all, but thank you for
Officer Pineapple.
Yeah, nice.
That is
nice.
Jeff McIntosh.
Jeff McIntosh. Yeah.
Carolyn Hill is asking what can be done to put up a light on Church Street in 98.
So I think they're looking. Am I wrong?
No,
I tell
you're
you?
not wrong,
No.
because I've
So
heard
we're
that
there.
too.
Okay. So there,
I've
that
heard
is
that
DOT
too.
is looking at that. I think they notified us that's under consideration or being looked at. We can follow back up with that, but you can also email Region 1 DOT. I think they're in Chipley. Correct? Is that correct? Right? And but yeah, I want to feel out they're reviewing that now. So
Yeah.
maybe got a chance. We got a chance. So
Well, you're saying there's a chance.
yeah, I'm saying there's a chance.
Joseph Paul, JP.
JP.
I see a lot of new faces at the SO, and he said, bonus? What kind of bonus are we talking about?
Yeah. Listen, I'm not paying those law school loans, JP. I'm just telling you that right now. And so you don't get to sue me. So I'm getting
Rich Foster says, whatever goes up must come down. You are absolutely correct.
That's exactly right.
And that's what he's scared of.
That's exactly right. Everyone thought, are you afraid of terrorists? No, I'm afraid that I can't fly. I mean,
his arms would get tired.
Oh my gosh. Definitely not that.
And then Larry Mitchell, is there a restriction on loud vehicles?
Yeah, there is, and it has to do with the distance for which they can be heard. In fact, it just changed. I'll actually have to think about that one just a little bit. But they literally was just recently a change in the law July 1st on that. So.
Okay. And what I know there was a recent change on
Yeah,
that,
it was
and
like
it's
100 feet from the vehicle, I think is what it is. But I just don't want to say that
Is it
specific.
100?
As soon as I say it, I'll be
say
wrong.
it was like 25.
Yeah, it's really difficult because you can hear a vehicle. There's a difference between it's whether it's a stereo as opposed to loud pipes and those
Yeah.
kind of things. So
Yeah. You know what came
what's
up again today?
What's that?
Because we had severe weather this morning, and I thought about Lindsay this morning. In Florida, you can also use your hazards in the rain now, and it's like the
Correct.
bane of my existence.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is they're with the loud music from the vehicle. It's if you can hear the music from a distance, but the same thing doesn't apply to a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just because I can hear the music, it makes it very convoluted to deal with. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. We're caught up on questions. And somebody else asked about Church Street 98. I'll check on that. Ian Satter.
I hope we're not just making that up
is the
because I
PIO.
literally thought that was the case too.
Yeah, Ian Satter is the PIO at FDOT, and I'll ask him about that. And
we
if
need to
that's
we need to double check
in their
that.
purview.
Yeah.
It's 50 feet.
It's 50 feet. Thank you. Our fact check, 50 feet on the.
So she split us in half.
So think about that for a second. So you can, you're right. So you can't loud music or audible past 50 feet, but a house could be 400 feet. So it's a little bit different. It can be convoluted.
Yeah. Charlie Comer has another question.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie is actually a regular on our Instagram. He's fantastic. He shares all the things.
Wonderful.
He's asking a law enforcement question. For someone who wants to go into law enforcement one day, what's your thoughts on starting out as a university officer while finishing a degree?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I always say this: anywhere that you can get a start in contact with the public. If you ask me my druthers, something like the university police. I'm really a big believer in working at the jail. I think you learn how to contact people, and I think it's a profession in and of itself. That doesn't mean you have to stay in a jail forever, but boy, the skills you learn there are scalable for the rest of your career.
And then you get on the other
Dispatch is
side of
another great place to work. But any of those three, I think, are excellent. I don't have any.
And once you do make it to patrol, you appreciate that stuff so much more.
Yeah, you know what I would do outside of law enforcement? If you didn't do something that wasn't in, dispatch to jail, maybe a university police, a smaller police department or something, you're going to laugh when I tell you this, but a waitress or a waiter at a busy restaurant, because why? You learn how to deal with irate people, unreasonable people. If you've worked in
Learn how to
sales, multitask, if you've learned to deal with irate, irrational people, that's just a good skill, because we do that a lot. And so any of those things I think help prepare you. Anything where you deal with the public, that's a great opportunity. But if you pushed me, I would say the jail would be my number one.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And speaking of which, Charlie, thank you for the segue.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We actually just put one person from the jail and one person from our training division through the National De-Escalation Training Center.
Correct.
Train the Trainer program. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of trying to create a culture, not that we haven't been doing this for years, but now we will be able to train
to formalize de-escalation training. We're in the business of the application of violence sometimes. That is never going to change. That is the business where sometimes we have to resort to violence. But every chance we can, we're going to try and mitigate that and reduce that opportunity to do that. Why? Because it's better for the citizens we serve, but it's also better for our staff. Everybody involved, nobody wants to have to go physical. So, having people trained to train our own staff makes us better at that. It's just another tool. It's not the answer, it's an answer.
Yeah. Another tool in the tool
Yeah,
belt.
it's another tool in the toolbox, for sure.
Yeah. Judy Wood is asking, who can we contact about excessive speeding and very loud vehicles on Old Jolly Bay Road?
Lieutenant Bart Smith is going to be listening to this, I almost guarantee you, and I will talk to him about that. Mm-hmm. We'll have he's your district lieutenant for the Freeport area, and so we were just talking about Bart doing something about on Black Creek Boulevard, so you're not too far apart there. We'll see what we can do about it.
Mm-hmm. And then Larry Mitchell says we need y'all to tighten up on here on 90, and trucks and cars are so loud you can't talk 200 feet away. It's just loud. Carolyn Hill says letting you all know I support what you did when somebody on the bridge was in need and stopped and stepped in. Please let us know all was okay. I gotta say,
we were having a talk about this before, right? We were just talking about.
Yeah.
So if you don't stop and help somebody, so just kind of real quickly, people were complaining because a deputy stopped and used a hazard to help somebody who was disabled on the bridge, and then somebody said, well, how you shouldn't do that. Here's the thing, and I say this again and again. This is what I say to every elected official. Make a decision, take action, deal with it. Because guess what? 50% of the people are going to be mad if you're passing out money. They didn't get enough or they didn't get it, right? So the bottom line is using the blue lights to help that disabled person make sure they're not hit is the right thing to do. Does it cause backup traffic sometimes? Yeah, absolutely. That is life. My job is not to try and make everybody happy. My job is to do the best of our ability to make sure our people and the people we work for are safe. It's not, and if it inconveniences someone, that is in fact life. And so I thank you for saying that, because we literally were people complaining that we shouldn't use blue lights to do that. Well,
And what's even more tragic? Charlotte County just had a deputy killed.
100% true.
Because he was pulled over with his lights on, helping someone,
sure.
and a drunk driver hit and killed him.
And I can name deputies by name that have been hit, stopped on the side of the road here.
Yeah.
I can tell you people who have been hit by traffic in the roadway are clipped, myself included. So, yeah, we're going to use blue lights to help disabled people. We're not going to pass disabled motorists. We are going to help change tires. We're going to check on those things. And if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. That's the business we're in. Somebody complained, why are you unlocking cars? That's a business. And why are you changing tires? That's a business. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
So.
Restream, the program I'm using, is letting us know that we've received 100 chats today. So that's great. Cool. We've got 100 comments on our feed so far. Cool. And Carolyn said you guys did exactly what needed to be done.
Thank you. And it was just funny because we had people that were calling and complaining about it. I'm like.
Cheyenne Woodard is asking anything on the man that was killed in Choctaw Beach.
Yes. and I'm not sure that we've cleared that out. That is going to end up being a medical issue.
Yeah.
So
We did respond.
we did.
We were there, but it looks like a medical call. And then Deborah Smith says, if it saves a life, thank you. And there was no, I know it's shocking, but there was no traffic crash on the bridge today. There was just delays.
Right.
So I hate it. I hate it that you were.
Listen,
a couple
I
minutes late to
understand.
work.
I get it. It's frustrating. I understand that. I'm not. That's not me being flippant about it. But I say this to our staff all the time. You cannot try and make everyone happy. You try and do the right thing. If you make a mistake, you apologize, make a mistake, right? But we're going to go on and try and do the right thing. We're not going to sit around and go, oh, I'm afraid I might make somebody mad. Because listen, half the people are going to be mad either way. Make a decision. And it's funny because I was telling somebody this before, I see that with elected officials a lot. They'll suffer death by 1,000 cuts, right? They know the decision they're going to make, but they won't make it because 4 or 5 people yell at them or get mad at them. Well, guess what? The same 4 or 5 people are going to be yelling at them the next time they have this meeting or the next time or the time after that. Make the best decision with the best information you have and live with it. If you make a mistake, apologize. If you believe it's the right thing and it's the right thing, then just write it to the ground because you're not going to change anybody's mind, period. Make a decision.
Yeah.
That's the free public service of, that's coming from a guy who's wrong pretty regularly.
Thank you for coming to his TED Talk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I spend half my life apologizing for things I said and things that other people did that I didn't know anything about, but that's life too.
You have 2 daughters.
Amen, amen.
Dawson Alexander says, light at Orange Street at 98, is that being currently in the works? A lot of pedestrian traffic and beach accesses are 2 great reasons also. I don't know about that, but 100% concur with you. And listen, we've pretty heavily talked about needing sidewalks on the side of 98, going down Miramar as well too, sidewalks down East Point, Washington. I'm telling you, there are several places, particularly there on 98, where people are walking back and forth to work. Boy, that really needs to be done. Yeah.
It really, really does.
Yeah. And at our last strategic policing meeting, STARCOM, I hate using abbreviations, but here I did. We talked about how we've had a decrease in crashes at major intersections.
Yeah, we actually have, but we targeted those intersections over the last year. We targeted about 7 intersections, 5 to 7 intersections, and we had a discernible, noticeable reduction in traffic crashes. And we have to move that around because we can't do that to every intersection, right? So one of them, for instance, was 393, pretty significant reduction in the accidents. The other one was 331 and
98.
Thank you, 331 and 98. I'm sitting here pointing at the road and can't think of it. Yeah. But pedestrian, there are places where sidewalks and pedestrians would be so beneficial to the citizens.
Yeah. And do you think, and this is just a question for me, sometimes traffic lights don't necessarily stop traffic crashes from occurring?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you think you're always going to have people that are going to run them. I mean, you have those kind of issues, and but anytime you mitigate and control the flow of traffic, you're going to be better off.
Yeah. I think we're caught up. We're getting closer to Christmas, and I just want to put out there that it's a tough time of year right now. It's tough on a lot of people. And what are you anticipating over the next few weeks as far as
let me just talk about the Christmas thing for just a second too, because it's the time of year where when people are struggling maybe with substance abuse issues, maybe it's really emotional time, some mental health issues. Before you make drastic decisions, reach out and try and call someone. You can call us. You can call 911 if that's what you need to do. Deputies aren't always there. Our fire rescue, they're not there to just take people to jail, right? Let us put you in contact. We'll put up the suicide prevention hotline. We'll make sure that's on our website. And this is just a really tough emotional time for a lot of people. And it resurrects a lot of things in their lives. And it can be an emotionally lonely time for a lot of people. I know that we can't solve every problem, but I think that if there's an opportunity for us, just before you do something drastic, pick up the phone and call us. We'll try and put you in contact with somebody to try and help you.
Yeah. And if you're in need of something, I can't tell you. Yeah. And other people reaching out to us saying, "Hey, I know this family is in need. Can you reach out and help them?"
There's a wonderful verse in the Bible that says, don't let the left hand know what the right hand's giving, right? And it go back to that thing about the arrest. So why aren't you posting the arrest? We don't post every arrest, and we're not going to. We're also not going to tell you every time we try and do something to help somebody. It's because it's not. It's important that you understand that we have caring, giving people, but a lot of what our staff does, just you're never going to hear it, and that's fine too. That's fine too. And we want it to be that way. We highlight sometimes, but we try very carefully, again, to biblically speaking, is to not let the left hand know what the right hand's doing. So anyway,
I think it's of good note to say we do really get a lot of really great compliments about our deputies.
And we get a lot of citizens that call in and say, I want to help with family X.
Yeah.
I want to help with family Y. I want to help with this. We don't advertise it. Most people say, hey, listen, I don't want anybody to know, and that's fine. We've taken envelopes with money in them and passed them out to people, and because that was the right thing to do at the time. Or maybe it's somebody with that needed a space heater, or I can tell you, I can name them by name that have bought groceries for people.
Yeah.
And so that's not to pat our folks on the back, but we're just not gonna advertise all that. But we do try very hard to help people where we can, because we think that's part of our mission.
Yeah. So. Victoria Lee says we need speed control between Bay County through Watersound Parkway. Is that State Highway Patrol, or is that the domain of WCSO?
So you're talking about Camp Creek Road? Is that what she's saying? Between 30A and, say that again?
It says Bay County through Watersound Parkway.
Oh yeah, that's us and Highway Patrol as well too. Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, I had to get out with a pretty serious accident there a couple weeks ago involving a motorcycle. So it's definitely a
and there's construction through there right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit of construction through there, which makes it tough. And as soon as I get past construction, we get some speed. But our traffic unit has been out there working pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So.
Nathan Hobbs says not complaining, but would love to see a light at 83 in Sunrise.
Sure. No, you can listen. You
that's
absolutely
right near
can
us.
Listen. You know what? Don't quote me on this. I think they're looking at that one too. There is probably more wrecks at 83 now. It used to be Ramsey Road and 331 around Freeport was really one of the worst. But I don't know that 83 isn't one of the worst in the county right now. 83 in Sunrise, which is by our main administrative headquarters, if you don't know that. But that's a tough place. But I think they're looking at that. Somebody will have to double check me. And by the way, he said that I'm not complaining. You can complain. That's 100%. We complain too. That's not. I don't get to say that. I don't get to make that decision. That's a DOT decision. But a squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Gets the attention. So don't worry about that. We'll pass it along as well.
Yeah. I think we're caught up in questions. Awesome. Everybody just really reiterating that they appreciate us and appreciate you. And
well, I get to work. So here's the great thing: is I get to represent a bunch of dedicated men and women, that work at this organization. Whether they work at the animal shelter, or they're at the jail, or they're in communications, or their administrative team that keep us running, or our fleet maintenance people, our property people. And then the things you guys see every day, again, the LEO, the firefighters, the medics, the EMTs, so I get to see all the rest of the story. I get the list of everything that's going on every day, and it makes you proud of the work they're doing. We always strive to be better, but I probably tend to see be a little bit harder on our staff than certainly any even some of the critics, right? But I also recognize when they do a heck of a job, and they really, it's a lot to be proud of. You've got the top-rated fire rescue organization in the state of Florida this year, which is Walton County Fire Rescue. We got our dispatcher, Brittany Miller, that was named one of the top dispatcher in the state of Florida. How awesome is that? By Nina. Mm-hmm. You had Ashley Dumont, our folks with the paramedic, just being recognized as being one of her work by the state of Florida. That's a big deal. I mean, that's a really big deal. Yeah. And so we're proud of the men and women that work here and what they do. And even in whatever capacity that is, it just takes a lot of things. These two ladies sitting right here, it's funny. You guys, the public, have gotten so used to that. If there's anything I would say that is probably underappreciated is if you look at our social media, our public information, our transparency, a part of that. I think a lot of people take that for granted that it's like this everywhere. But trust me when I tell you it's not. It's not. And so, Corey and Lindsay do just a heck of a job of really working around the clock. We call it 2:00 in the morning, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they still get up and come to work, and that's the business they're in. So a lot of dedicated people here.
Yeah.
Any,
Is there anything else you want to hit before we log off? We've been on an hour.
Okay, murder suspects arrested from Gwinnett County.
Yep.
Child sexual battery subject arrested out of Pennsylvania.
Yep. Deputy involved shooting. They're going to be cleared pretty quickly by the state. We are putting those folks back to work. We support the actions our deputies took and saved lives. There's no question about that. Our fire rescue personnel folks, again, on the top of the state of Florida. Brittany Miller over in dispatch doing a heck of a job, like all our dispatch folks do. There's so many good things. Our jail staff. Our SAT program.
I'm the chief cheerleader. That's what I do. I was at the other night, the shooting the other day. I said, the problem is, it seems like I'm relegated to being the chief cheerleader, and I'm not really great at that. But I am super proud of the work that these men and women do, and we'll probably won't be back till after the first of the year, just because it's Christmas. A lot of things going on. If you need something, if we didn't answer your question, we didn't dodge your question, I don't get a chance to see them.
Blame me.
Hey, you can blame me. I don't. Get in line. You can't eat me. That's what I tell them. So, but we are all joking aside. We're really proud to represent you folks, and we'll look forward to coming back to you after the first of the year and hopefully it'll be so boring and quiet that all of you just don't even want to sign on. So that's when we know we're having a good day. Yeah. Oh God, I did, didn't I? Oh well.
Lindsay's grumbling.
You gotta be dumb. If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta learn to be tough. So, but we do appreciate all of you. I hope you have a blessed and happy holidays, and may God bless and keep you and your family.